Hi friends, so today's video is going to be a special video for all the candidates who have cleared SIDBI Grade A written exam and now are preparing for the interview. So I have put down some really good points that you need to take care for preparation of your interview, and all these points have been put down here in discussion with an ex-panel member of SIDBI interview panel. सो प्लीज पे अटेंशन, ऑल दीज आर जेन्युइन पॉइंट्स. आप कुछ भी नहीं करके जाएंगे, सिर्फ ये भी करके जाएंगे, तब भी आपका इंटरव्यू अच्छा ही होगा. So these are the areas that we are going to discuss about self, what you need to prepare about yourself, MSc sectoral overview, functions of SIDBI, economy in general, key ratios and terms in the lending or the banking industry, and other key areas what you need to read. So let's start with about self. Now, about self is something, a kind of a icebreaker in an interview where they will ask you something randomly from your resume. So maybe they can ask you about your family background, if your father is a businessman, or what are the challenges in his business, does he has an overdraft account with the bank, all those kind of things. Or if you are from a particular city which is popular or is known for something, they can ask you a question on that. Your educational background is also something, no, from which questions can be asked. I'm not talking about technical, but if there are some outliers, you have less percentage in 10th but higher percentage in graduation, there might be a question on that. Or if you failed in one or the other subject sometimes during your entire journey, they can ask you question about that. So be ready with the answers. Professional background, especially if you're from the banking industry, they can ask you about the credit area, lending area. Otherwise, also if you are having any work ex, they can ask you about your work experience or how it can be helpful to the organization. Core strengths and weaknesses, do your SWOT, be ready with that. They can ask you questions on your strengths, weaknesses. Hobbies is another sensitive area which you should be very careful about, because generally when they ask about hobbies, people tend to say, playing tennis, cricket, something of that sort. But there is a difference between hobbies, no, or just a time pass. So you should be very careful. Hobbies is something where you are genuinely interested in, right? So be very careful if you are no, telling them something as your hobby. You should be thoroughly prepared and you should be genuinely interested in that. Next, I am talking about MSME Sectoral Overview. See, SIDBI works in close liaison with the MSME, so you need to have a good overview of the MSME sector. So here I would suggest that you should first be very clear about the definition of MSME. Then MSMED Act, which is very big, but I think there is a website by the name textguru.com where you can get a trimmed down version of this. Go through this, try to understand that, there can be questions from it. Then MSc Ministry. Go through the MSc Ministry website, and there are various institutions under this ministry, such as KVIC, MSME Development Institute, NSIC. Go through the functions of these institutes, why they have been established, what are their objectives. Then what are the schemes introduced by Ministry of MSME to promote MSMEs in India? This is again something of importance to you, and you should also be ready with the perspective that how these schemes are being implemented, are they being fruitful in meeting their objectives or not, that you should be clear about. Next area that you should prepare is basically about SIDBI, which is very important. So you should be very thoroughly prepared about functions of SIDBI that you can read from the SIDBI website. There is a thing called SIDBI 2.0. So what is SIDBI 2.0? What is that one thing they are trying to achieve in SIDBI 2.0, that you should be clear about. Then SIDBI has some associated organizations like SIDBI Venture. You should be clear about what is SIDBI Venture, what are its objectives, when it was established, all those things. Then there are some particular schemes or programs by SIDBI to basically help the MSME sector in India that you should be prepared about. Then there are products by SIDBI, like what kind of different loans SIDBI gives, what kind of help SIDBI provides to the entrepreneurs in India for entrepreneurship development. That is something you should be clear about. Then you should also know the broad balance sheet of SIDBI, the financials of SIDBI, from where does SIDBI gets funding from, how does it meet its expenses, all that you should be knowing. SIDBI annual report is something very important for you to read. I would suggest you to read the annual report for 2 years so that you know what are the key trends and policies, or is there any policy shift between the last year and this year. That will help you do some good discussion with the panel members. The fourth area is economy in general. So do not underestimate the understanding of common economy or economic related terms in an interview. They can ask you anything now in economics, any key term, inflation, no, monetary policy, repo, reverse repo, because ultimately that impacts every business. So key terms in economics, then what is the impact of inflation on MSMEs or COVID and its impact on MSMEs? What steps have been taken by the government and SIDBI to reduce that impact? All that you should be knowing. Then what is the contribution by MSME to the Indian economy, to the GDP, to the employment? That you should be having good understanding of. ठीक है. Next is basically lending industry. Now SIDBI is basically giving loans to MSMEs. So you should be knowing about the lending industry in India, what are different type of institutions, and then now key ratios in lending. That how do you decide that whether the loan that you are giving is risky or not? What are the key ratios that you will look into? Debt equity ratio, internal rate of return, debt service coverage ratio, break even point, etc., etc. That ratios should be at the top of your mind. Then understanding of NPAs, KYC, credit risk, operational risk. Basically, when you give loans, there are risks. How do you manage that risk? What are the framework to manage that risk? That you should be clear about. Then support organization like credit bureaus, rating agencies, which help you in disbursing the loans. You need help of rating agencies to know what is the financial stability of the organization to whom you are trying to give a loan. So they are also part of this MSME ecosystem that you should be clear about how do they work, what are their roles and responsibilities. The last is other key areas apart from SIDBI and MSME. I would also request you to go through the RBI website because ultimately, who is the big daddy? RBI. So there would be a lot of notifications related to MSME sector or credit disbursement on RBI website, or there would be speeches on RBI website. Go through that. They would give you good perspective about the things and they will help you learn some good points which you can put forth in your discussion. So that is, guys, I hope this very short video will give you good direction as in how to prepare for an interview, what are the key areas that you need to work upon, और अच्छे से करिएगा, इंटरव्यू फोड़ के आइएगा और मुझे ज़रूर बताइएगा हाउ डिड योर इंटरव्यू गो. Best of luck guys, have a nice day.